Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And joining us live from Singapore is Rubyni Karun. She is a leadership alignment master. She has helped hundreds of leaders and business owners find their alignment and well-being for high performance and success within their teams, businesses, and most importantly, within themselves and their lives. Welcome to the show, Rubyni.
Thank you so much, Ajay. It's my pleasure to be here and speak about this with you today.
Wonderful, wonderful. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people will benefit from what we are going to talk about. We'll talk about leadership alignment. So my first question to you, Rubyni, is to understand, what does a leadership alignment master do? I want to understand from you for the audience.
Perfect. So what we do is that we work with corporate leaders, anyone who is in a VP, regional head, managing director, CEO role. Now they're brilliant at their skills, but there's something missing from their lives. And when we work with them on high performance in self, high performance in teams, as well as business revenue optimization. So this means we can work with leaders within companies as well as business owners or founders. Now, what does the alignment link do? In my opinion, the alignment link is the everything in between for the last mile or the last potential of business growth. All right. And what do I mean by this is that when a person is conducting business or leading a team or trying to profit, and they're doing it out of a place of misalignment with anything in life. In life, there's time scarcity, there's family, there's parents, there's, school bills, there's house, there's so many things that happens in a person's life. And when someone leads their business with scarcity outside business, it affects the performance of the business. So we bring in neurological, psychological, and emotional tools to help corporate leaders and business owners lead their teams and their business from a place of alignment.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what do these business leaders generally come to you for? Because, I want to understand through that for the audience, what are their pain points? Is it one, two thing, many things, several things at the same time?
It's all within one bucket, to be honest. And this bucket is around overwhelm. So the sentence, I don't know what's going wrong. It's around anxiety. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. It's around stress, around revenue or performance. I don't know how to help them or push them. And then lastly, it's, should I be even doing this? I don't know what's wrong with me. That's the worst. So then it's like, should I even be having this company, or should I be quitting and changing jobs? So that's the spectrum that leaders come to me with.
Right. Do they ever talk about how they can make their employees' life better?
That's something that they don't talk about, but I encourage them to talk about because, it's like this old school, new school mentality. One of the biggest problems for leaders is labor retention. What I talk about is high performance teams. So one of the key things in creating a high performance team is to be a connected leader, to understand what your employees want. In this day and age, it's not 20, 30 years ago where I pay you, you do. It's about me understanding what your career goals are and enabling you to succeed through me. And so that shift in thought and perspectives to think about high performance differently is something that I also do to help them through that alignment. Yeah.
Absolutely, Rubyni. That is an irony that leaders are talking only about themselves, especially in the backdrop of the great resignation going on, quiet quitting going on, and they are trying to find nothing wrong in talking about your own welfare and growth, but a leader is also the captain of the ship.
Absolutely.
And captain of the ship will always, leave the ship last or go down with the ship. Absolutely. As they used to say, that was the honorable way of doing things. So
Yes.
in this backdrop, since some time back, they used to talk about, employee first. A lot of time, even before customer first, there was this whole talk around employees first. Now, customers are also, leaders are not able to take care of the customers because they are, my understanding is, not so many of them are not connected with the customer. That is where customers have a lot of questions, and that is where a lot of bots have come in between. There is no human connection between the leaders. So they, instead of giving solutions, you are trying to avoid and evade the customer. So that part is also lost. In terms of employees, you are talking about themselves. You're talking about yourself. So employee disenchantment is already done. And you talk about employee retention then. If you are not talking enough about your employees, about the welfare of the people, about the welfare of the ship that you are commanding, how will you be satisfied in your own life? In this backdrop, help us understand how do you help them bring alignment in their lives, in the lives of these so-called leaders, I would say.
Everything that you said, absolutely 100% I agree with that, because it's what's happening now, right? And think about it. Why is it happening? So the why is because of fear. Simple. What is the fear about? The fear of not succeeding, right? And so when you're not thinking about employees, when you're not thinking about customers because business models have been changing and you're not sure what to do, all you're stuck in is fear. So that's where I come in, and why people come to me. They come to me with problems around performance in teams. They come to me with problems around performance in how their company is growing. And they're coming to me with problems around them not knowing what to do. So the alignment angle helps them think about two things that you didn't mention earlier, which is so important, which is employee experience and customer-centric leadership. It's forgotten,
Right.
like you said, right? So when you're aligned, then you have the space to think out of a place of strategy and not fear. And when you're thinking from a place of strategy, then you can create the performance you want from an aligned place.
Right, right. So how do you get them started through this process? Because you said there are a lot of missing in that whole equation. A lot of what is missing is also empathy. This whole question, a lot of leadership are dealing with this issue of uh, you know uh, imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome. So leadership is talking is in the news. Leadership is in the trend. Toxic leadership is in the trend. Toxic workplaces are in the trend. Great resignation is in the trend. Quiet quitting is in the trend, and also they are talking about quiet firing. So in this backdrop, how do you expect? Your job is very, very difficult, Rubyni. I can tell you. So how do you do this difficult job? How do you get them to talk about the things that they haven't talked till now, and they suddenly want a magic, wand from you and solve the problems? I'm sure you must be having a magic wand. How do you do your job? Help us. How do you get them started into this area, perhaps which they have never ventured before? Tell us
Yeah.
so that others can also understand. There are millions and millions of startups. People have a very different notion of leadership. Very few are trying to understand what leadership is all about. It's not about giving a designation to yourself or getting a designation from somewhere else. Help us understand.
Yeah. And Ajay, I love how you said that, because I'm going to steal that from you, that I have a magic wand.
You must be. You must be.
And so just the fact before I dive into this, I help companies who have been operating for maybe 4 to 25 years, and these companies have a size of either from 200 employees to 5,000 employees or whichever. So maybe not the startups, because the startups have a lot of incubators and support and mentorship to help them already. And I think the difficult segment are those leaders who are used to the old way of leadership, who haven't changed to the new way of leadership. So, my clientele range from the age of 35 all the way till 55, in that bracket. And the reason why I'm saying this is because no one's doing anything out of being evil. No one. people are making mistakes out of not knowing where the mistake is. And that's why, interestingly, I actually find my job easy, because once I hit the nail on the head and I say, this is why it's happening, correct? And they agree, everything after that is smooth. And what is the nail on the head? It's stemming from fear. Decision making is not being done from a place of pure strategy. Company growth is not being done from a place of customer centricity. Employee experience is not being thought of from a place of business growth in a good way. Like you mentioned, empathy, right? So once we talk about misalignment and fear being the driving growth mechanic, and then they kind of come to the same side of the table as me. What can be on the other side of fear? If you are in a stable state, your state of mind is controlled and aligned, what kind of decisions can you make? You would be razor sharp in the decisions that you make. It would not be cloudy. It would not be from fear. So therefore, what would employees think about you? How would customers see you? Maybe not you as the leader, but your company, right? So that's why I say, whether it's a corporate leader or whether it's a business owner or founder, this alignment is the missing link in creating that growth. They come to me for one reason, I put a different reason on top of them, and I say, look, this is the problem, come to the same side as me, and we have to be in agreement. So the initial call that I have with people is to understand if I can work with them. I've had people offering me 6-figure contracts to say, I don't want to do anything as a leader, you work with my company. And I say no, because it starts with leadership. I cannot do it. Because if I go to the employees, everyone is going to say, but it's the leader's fault. And so I actually reject contracts like that. It might be lucrative, but it's not worthwhile. It's my name at the end of the day, right? So I have a call to understand, can I work with this perspective that the leader has? Is this leader open to having the perspective of customer and employee centricity to create growth? And are they willing, coachable, and open to the change, to being aligned first before making decisions for their company? I hope I answered that in a
Yes. So how does such conversations go, Rubyni? Because you talk about their success and high performance from the employees. Again, it is about
performance from them.
Okay. So the ship does not sail alone. There is the commander of the ship, captain of the ship, and there are people who row the ship, or the engines that take the ship forward or backward or sideways, whichever way you want to. Only when all the crew is in same way of thinking. So I want to understand then, how exactly does it work out? Do they understand? Do they not understand? Because it is totally a different area. As you said, nobody has any ill feelings about anyone, but they simply don't know. The fact of leadership, the fact of life is, even to a new employee who changes from one company to another, the first thing they do is to unlearn a lot of things and learn a lot of things. Why is it that the leadership is not doing, or has been not doing, of unlearning the old ways and learning the new ways? What stops them from doing that? Is it bad? They all know, like, everyone is trying to learn ChatGPT, isn't it? So it's the same way. You need to unlearn a lot of things and learn the new things, especially if you are a leader. It all starts from you and stops with you. How does that work out on the ground when you tell them? Or they simply pay your fees and go away, or do they actually get down to implementing it?
And I really appreciate that viewpoint that you mentioned there. And you said 2 questions. So let me answer the first one first. So what is their perspective? So on this call that I have with them, I would know that they are open to their change. And if they are not, I don't work with them. So my clients are all leaders who know that change starts with them. There's no 2 ways about it. I have no clients who don't know that the change starts and ends with them, and it trickles down. It's not for other people to change. So that's number 1. Now, number 2, you mentioned, I said around not having evil intent in change, right? And also understanding, why aren't leaders unlearning things? You mentioned that, right? And so I have a very objective but also heartfelt sort of viewpoint on this. It's from ego that people don't want to change. But it's also because of the fear of not knowing how to change. So think about this, Ajay. From the time that a person was in primary school, their need to perform for their parents' happiness was already there. It's always performing. It's always doing good. If you do bad, you get the cane or the belt or whatever in those days, and however that worked, right? And so the person's mind doesn't know how to get into a place where it doesn't work. How to do something when you don't know what is the outcome. What is the fear that comes up from the unknown? That's quite a bit of fear, right? And if a person is already seasoned, an experienced warrior, wouldn't any fear of the unknown be absolutely scary? And wouldn't that fear come up in ego and say, no, I'm just not going to? But actually, it just stems from the fear of unknown. So when I create this space where it's a safe space to admit things, to let down sort of the barriers and the shackles and the ego and the guards and the armor plates and the metal, there's so many things we put on ourselves in life, right? And as we do that together, you come to the root of why they're unwilling to learn and how they can actually improve themselves in a place of being open to this change. How can they release those fears, remember how much they've done, and recreate the kind of leadership within themselves that will work in their company? That's what I do.
Right, Rubyni. Let's look at it this way. Moving on from the old way of leadership to the new way of leadership, new age of leadership. Mm-hmm. What is the new way of leadership? What is the new age of leadership? In terms of leadership, if you see, especially in the last 10 years or so, the leadership positions have been held by quite younger people now. Lesser people who are there in very, very senior positions, maybe because they are founders or they are, somewhere they are in the ownership team, so they are. But in terms of the corporate culture, a lot of young CEOs have come into the background. And I think along with that, all these problems have also cropped up, not because of them, but maybe very coincidentally. So I want to understand then, what is the new way of leadership? What is the new age of leadership? What is the right kind of leadership that is required at the moment? Whether the new young generation leadership is not working, or is it that they need to understand a lot of things from the old? Because empathy is vanished now. It was there before. You are keeping tabs on almost all employees at everywhere where you can do that. CCTV cameras or all sort of mobile phones and all, you can keep a track of all these people. Earlier, but the trust is gone. Earlier there were no CCTVs, but the trust was very much there. How does it work? What do you tell them to adopt to? What is the manual here? What is the reference manual? Okay, this is the path for you to follow.
So I think this question will be very, very much biased to my opinion, not a universal opinion. But my opinion is actually something that you have mentioned a few times, which is empathy, and we call it connected leadership. So connected leadership embraces the notion of the employee wanting to work for the boss, having empathy with employees, but also having the employees' mutual understanding of goals and stretch goals. So this stretch concept of, okay, performance metrics baseline is here, and then upper sort of performance metrics is here, and this is how I can support you to hit that for your own benefit. So connected leadership taps into relationships, but also taps into high performance, and it taps into support and resources that are given. Okay, so that was the first answer. I think connected leadership is a brilliant way to foster a longer length of time for employees to stay in a company. So there's no problems of employees being retained or labor shortages. And the second one, performance, which is a baseline as well as a stretch. And the third one, a connectedness between the boss and the employee, so the employees feel taken care of, right? So that's my first answer. The second answer, which is this new age, old age leadership, I'm not too sure, and I can't really comment because of my age group of clients. But if I were to comment just in terms of my opinion, I think a lot of these hardball performance metrics, like you mentioned, monitoring and things like that, that's just the nature of technology entering firms, actually. So now there's a software that can monitor whether a person is having FaceTime in front of a screen. Businesses find out about it. Businesses know that it can improve productivity and it's not so expensive per head. And they're like, okay, why don't we use that to improve performance? In an employee perspective, it can also be seen as, oh, now I'm being monitored all the time.
Right.
In a boss's perspective, it can be, oh, now I can ensure productivity all the time. So this whole new age, old age, I think it's also because of technology. There wasn't this type of technology tools before. And I think businesses, in their attempt to use it, sometimes it can be misconstrued as a power tactic, right? So that communication before using these things is important as well. And this is why we're using it. It's not to hound you or breathe down your neck. That's my perspective. It's technology.
Absolutely. See, one job of the senior most member in the family or whoever is the decision maker is to look at all the choices available and take the right decision. The same with technology. Many people do not have so much of monitoring. If I have got 5 to 10 choices in my hand, I will try and use all my intellect to take the right decision. So I guess it all, as I said, it starts with the leader. The buck stops at the leader. That they cannot. And you see, when you talk of leadership, it is not always about the CEO or the CFO or the CHRO or what. It is also the mid-level leadership or the manager also. And everyone has to act as a leader in the right sense. Otherwise, you see, these are all we are creating a very circle of unhappy place and employees. And that is what the whole intention is, that should change, because everyone's lives is also, and not only everyone in the office, it's also back home. Either it is the employee or the leadership itself. The whole family is impacted, and that is where you talk about a healing first mentality for success. Help us understand what about this healing first mentality for success, especially in perspective of leaders, so that everyone is happy, they are also happy, everyone deserves happiness.
Yes, absolutely. And I bring such a heart-driven way to helping these leaders, right? And as you rightly mentioned, it's upper middle management as well. It's not just the top rung of leadership. And sometimes, and you might know this from all the people that you speak to, sometimes people keep hurt in themselves. Oh, he said this or she said this 4 years ago and I haven't gotten over it. But this is why I cannot. And this is why I won't. So this type of bad memories is what I call hurt or stuck feelings inside. That is almost like a leadership block or leadership trauma to overcome in their rise in careers. So we're talking about a head of banking becoming a managing director. That type of leadership upward movement. And what I want you to imagine is, when a person has this kind of obstacle and stuck within them, and the nature of their role in leadership is very high strung and overwhelm and stress and anxiety, when they go back home, they're not going to feel like being engaged. They're not going to feel like they can all of a sudden flip a switch and become their best selves, right? There's going to be hours of their lives wasted in feeling these negative emotions. And if they don't heal that kind of suppression and years on years of anger or frustration or whatever, it adds up on a person's soul, right? And they eventually become grumpy, frustrated, and angry at life. And the people at home suffer within it. And because I've spent 16 years in consulting and research, I've seen what it does. I've heard people speak about it. And you see broken families and addictions and things like that. So that's the word I use, heal. And of course, when we talk about leadership alignment, you cannot come away from the leader being high performance, the employees being a performance savvy, the company growing, but also when the leader's life is better, their homes are also better. So that's where my healing and alignment also step in for a happier leader, happier company, happier team, happier family. So many people are impacted by just that one boss.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As a boss, you impact the employee, and today's employee is tomorrow's leader. And they will
Yes.
impact so many other people. And thus, this whole chain reaction goes on. Be that as it may, there is much to learn from you, Rubyni, about leadership, alignment, and all these things. So, what is the best way for people to learn more from you? And for those people who would want to engage with your firm, with you professionally?
Perfect. Thank you so much for asking that. And I think the best way is to go and find me on LinkedIn. You can search my name, Rubyni Karun, Rubyni space Karun, which is here already. Or you can also go to my website, which is XfinitySG. And there you can learn how I help high performance teams, how I help coaching leadership, as well as the things I do to help heal past wounds.
Absolutely. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the
Thank
KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you, Ajay. Have fun.